It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is something from the Electric Radio Kings. That's Back to Black. No, not Back in Black, but Back to Black. And that features our good friend and fantastic guitarist, my good friend, Stacey David Blades. What's going on there, Stacey?
How are you, buddy? Good to talk to you. And we ran into NAMM at NAMM. I said we didn't run into NAMM. We kind of the same thing. But I hadn't seen you in a while, so that was. I'm glad I ran into you, and great to be back on the show.
Well, I got to tell you, Stacey, you've been, I've been a fan of yours as well. I consider myself a friend. We've crossed paths many times over the years during your tenure in L.A. Guns, we've had you on the show, and you've always been a good guest and a good friend of the show, and I'm glad to have you on to help promote your most current project, which you're in about almost the fourth year of this, right?
Roughly just a little over 3 years now. So it's it's been with anything, good things take time. And it's a lot of work, getting something new off the ground. Is a lot of work. It's really becoming, where you just go in swinging and you can't stop swinging until you break down those doors and break down those walls. So it was nice to have some success last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Stacey, I got to ask you here. Mm-hmm. You were part of a legacy band that obviously made their splash mostly in the 80s and into the early 90s, and you held down that position for quite a while. And it was a working gig for you. I mean, obviously you wrote and recorded original music with what was called L.A. Guns. I mean, obviously it was you, Steve, and Phil. And you have a part in the L.A. Guns legacy, but when you branch out to try to launch something brand new, especially in an era when there's not a lot of radio support, there's not a lot of record label support, there's not a lot of money, you really took a big risk there.
I did. It was... where do I start with this without sounding long-winded? I wanted a kick at the can of doing something that was, modern, so to speak, or what's, called active rock. And I just didn't want to be another guy, replacement guitar player, going from band to band to band to band. I wanted something that was my own. And do something that was current and, that had a good rock, street kind of rock vibe, but mixed with a little bit of alternative and modern sound. So that was the intention, and I, wasn't going to stop until I, saw this thing completely through. So with a lot of perseverance and a little bit of luck and some money, we were able to, do two very successful radio campaigns with a company called Landshark out of New Jersey. And Landshark is one of the premier radio promotion teams out there. And, they do everybody from Buck Cherry to Ozzy to, Papa Roach, Five Finger Death Punch, Pop Evil, all those cool bands. And then, so last year... our single Back to Black, which was the leadoff single from our album Per, that actually ended up entering 87 in the top 100 Billboard mainstream, and actually peaked and broke the top 30 at 28 and held that spot for 2.5 weeks. So that was really, really exciting to be amongst, Godsmack and Alice in Chains and all these other bands. It was like, I had to really stare at that for, every day and pinch myself. I'm like, wow, we really did that. So, that's the reward. It's just those nice little, game-winning things that you can do like that, but it comes with a shitload of work.
Well, yeah, of course.
And money.
Yeah, well, here, and I want to get into this. I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but I do have some questions because I've been doing this for 24 years. I was in FM radio for a long time and went independent back in 2003, and basically I'm all self-funded. I fund everything that we do personally because I've had the good fortune of making a good living and can pour, my extra finances into doing the classic metal show. And I feel an obligation to support people like you who've been very cool to me through the years and whatnot. But when it comes to the record or the music industry, I won't call it the record industry. I'll call it the music industry. If there is even an industry anymore, it's expensive because you artists have to probably self-finance, or you have to find some investors, and somehow, some way, if you do have an investor, there has to be a return on the investment somehow, and that's a big gamble. So how do you manage that?
Well, we were fortunate to have some money from the singer that we had. He's no longer in the band, but Paul Christian was able to have some money to put into the band. As you know, it's expensive to record, and to do a major national radio campaign is not cheap. It's very expensive, but it does get those results. First off, it's got to be good, because if it's not good, they're not going to accept it, and they're not going to push it to all the radio station and networks that they have throughout the U.S. So, it's got to be good. That's the first process. Then it's very political because, when you're dealing with national radio, it's basically you're at the, helm of what these programmers like or don't like, or whether they want to play it or consider you a priority. And when they're pushing, the new Alice in Chains release, guess what? You're not the priority as a new band. So it's kind of this double-edged sword where it's like, yes, you're getting the momentum of getting your stuff played nationally on active or current rock radio, but you're competing against all these bands like Godsmack and Alice in Chains and Papa Roach that have been around for years. So it's like you're the new guy amongst this pond of big fish. So it's you're really at the mercy of these radio programmers. But we did get a lot of great play, and that's how we ended up charting so well on Billboard.
Well, Stacey, let me ask you, obviously this isn't the 80s anymore, so how important is, quote-unquote, traditional terrestrial radio to you as a musician or as a band? Because I got to be honest with you, I personally have not listened to terrestrial music radio in probably a decade.
Yeah, it's kind of one of these things, bro, you're kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. It looks great on paper, and it is that nice to, it's like, oh, hey, dude, I heard you on the radio. I was just driving home from my job in Chicago. But it seems like most of the time that people are listening to the radio, as you know, is in their car. I don't know that many people that are listening to radio at their computer or at their desks or whatever while they're working. Maybe they are. One cool thing that we did get out of this was Alice Cooper's radio show, which you've probably heard, Nights with Alice Cooper. He featured us twice, actually, in 2018 and 2019, two different songs on his show. And that really broke the band open. A lot of people found out about us through that. So, there was a lot of other cool things that we did get out of that doing the radio campaign. And that was definitely one of them. He's just awesome. I love that guy.
Well, obviously Alice Cooper is an icon. and his show is syndicated all over the country, if not in other countries as well. And that would be a fantastic platform to be featured on or even mentioned because, as you're well aware, and I'm going to try to equate this to current lingo, but, you know, YouTube, for one thing, people who have created a persona on YouTube, they're now influencers. Well, what bigger influencer can you have in rock music than an Alice Cooper?
Yes. So there still is a traditional platform like that, but like I said, you know, YouTube is really, it's all about, you know, the social media and the networking and getting, man, it is really a science. And if you don't keep up on it or really have somebody in your camp that knows what they're doing, is you kind of fall behind. So you really have to do that. It's a 24/7 job. And then you're dealing with, as being a new artist, I've got to compete against all these other big bands in this genre who are all making new music. So it's just one thing after another. It's like you don't get off the treadmill. So it will test you.
Sure.
But, you know, I had this discussion when I was on Eddie Trunk's show last year. It's such a different, you know, ocean now because it's like, well, anybody can film a video and you can put it up on YouTube and you can, you know, get the views and you can buy views and you can buy likes. And it's so different because you weren't able to do that, you know, 20, 30 years ago. If you were lucky enough to get signed, you know, and the label pushed you and then MTV got behind you, that was the format. Of course, that has long been gone. So really, it's like you're all those entities, the person, or if you're lucky enough to have, you know, a decent manager or be on a label, you know, there still is some good record deals out there that bands have gotten. It's all of those things firing at once. So it really is a full-time job.
Yeah, I agree. Now, what is your viewpoint of, you know, music applications such as Spotify or Pandora? You know, what's your thoughts? Is that a helpful thing, or is that a hindrance, or is it sort of like you know, you're just going to have to accept that this is the world we live in now?
I think it's the last thing you say. And it's such a fine line, bro, because, you know, you can keep talking about something online and you keep talking about it. People will get sick of seeing the same thing. You're posting the same thing and the same thing every day and the same thing and the same thing. So it really comes down to is like you've got to find other facets to talk about the band than just say Facebook or Instagram. You've got to do all the multifacets, and then you got to get out there and you got to play, and that's going to kind of, you know, build this wave that you're going to ride the surfboard on. So, like I said, it's a constant education, and it's just, you know, you either get with it or you don't, and that's the world we live in. That's exactly what you said.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, obviously, music sales are not what they used to be, and you know, I know you're a great player. I've seen you play probably 24 times at least over the years. And, you know, musicians like to play. That's what they do. That's what their craft is. Yeah. So how does a band like yours get booked, especially when you're, you know, again, you're fairly new to the marketplace, but you are a name from, you know, obviously your stint with LA Guns and, yeah, even going all the way back to Rock's Gangs. So
yeah. It's, you know, a lot of times it's you getting on the phone and doing it yourself because like I said, we're in this world where it's like, you know, everybody kind of wants the easy ride, so to speak, and it's easy to sell a band that's got a 30-year history or marquee value. So on top of that, too, you're dealing with that fight as well. Well, you're a new band. I can only give you a set amount guarantee. So you just kind of have to suck it up and do it. and go out there and, play your heart out and just do that. You have to have a completely different mindset. So like I said, it does test you. You got to put on your football uniform and just go there and crack heads and just take it back to grassroots. But it's hard. It's hard doing something new. But like I said, you made the commitment to I'm doing this, hell or high water. And it came down to I want to do something different musically, and I didn't just want to be another guy as a replacement guy in another said band. As great as those gigs are, I didn't want to be my legacy of that. So
yeah, I get it. I mean, the thing is, you got to pay the bills somehow. You got to pay for your beers and chicks and your house somehow. So sometimes you have to suck it up and just do that. But you're one of those guys who are thinking ahead and are innovative and believe in yourself and your ability, and you took the big leap, and obviously it's paying off.
Yeah, we had a good year. We had a few setbacks. We did get signed to a company out of New York called MI5, which the guy from Modern English, Ted Mason, owns. And if you remember, I'll Stop the World and Melt With You. That's his label. They are affiliated with Universal Music Group. So we put out our own album, April, on our own record company called Grand Vision, and then we got the album picked up. 2 days after the album got released, the singer quits. So, it's, once again, the pitfalls and joys of being in a band and in the music industry. So, that was unfortunate, but we were very blessed to get a amazing new singer named Peter Summit, who's just been an absolute godsend, and we are gearing up to go back in the studio with producer Mike Gillies, who did our record. And Mike is Metallica's longtime engineer since the Load record, and he's been a blessing too. A lot of great people in our camp as well.
Well, it's a good thing your new singer isn't, doesn't have a problem with being a replacement singer.
Right. Yeah.
Just kidding with you. Well, I mentioned Rock's Gang there, Stacey, and this is just something I'm just curious about because it was so many years ago. Can you tell me a little bit about your how you got affiliated with Kevin Steele and Rock's Gang and how you landed that gig? I mean, they are Florida based, right?
Yeah. So I was living in Toronto at the time, and I was a fan of the band. I had that first record, fantastic record, man. Really dug them. And I remember going through, popped into this bookstore one day, and I was always like, oh, the new Metal Edge or Hit Parader have come out, and I always stop and, let me check out the new Metal Edge. So I saw, I'm flipping through the pages, and there it is, right in the print, Rock's Gang seeks lead guitar player, yada, yada, yada. And I was like, no way. I was like, I'd be perfect for this band. So my band at the time, Frady Cat, had just kind of more or less broken up. It was 91 or early 92. And so I think I just put like a press kit together, kind of a really good solo picture of myself, and I made a copy of a demo that we had done, and FedExed it down to Florida, and they called me like within days, and they're like, when can you come down to Florida and audition? And I was like, whoa, this is awesome. So I learned, I think, five or six songs, and flew down. Flight was delayed 5 hours. I caught this like god awful Beijing flu, and I was like, oh, this is how this is going to start. And God, I was so sick I couldn't even speak. And I went in there and I kicked ass. And I flew back to Toronto. And I think about 3 or 4 days later, they called and they said, I got the gig. So I kind of packed up my stuff and quit my job and got on a flight, and down I went. And life changed drastically after that.
Well, obviously. So what would you say sets hungry musicians apart from your normal blue collar guy who goes to work at the steel mill every day? Is it do you have a more of a devil may care attitude, or do you it's just like, well, you have an idea that, well, we'll see what happens? Or what kind of optimism fills your head as a musician to where you're going, I'm going to take that chance. I might fall flat on my face, but then again, I might excel. So what drives you as a musician to take chances and, go, what, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring and hopefully it, it's successful.
Yeah. It's you got to own it. Basically, I mean, first off, you have to be a great musician, and you got to look good, and then it's a really a mental state, because I just remember when they called me and I was like getting this set up to go down there. I'm like, I'm getting this gig. So it's also too a little bit of law of attraction. It's like I really I kind of attracted that getting that gig, because it was like, when I had that the first record, Things I Never Done Before, I was like, at that time, this is the kind of band I want to be in. So it was like everything kind of lined up. To you, how far you take it. For me, I've always been, and I've been like this since I was a kid. It was like, I just want, whether it was playing baseball or playing golf, I'm going to own it, So you can't second guess anything, and you can't be, yeah, that would be great if I did that and went down there, but you can't have any. You're all in. You're in the deep end, without hesitating. So that's really kind of why I've had the successful career I think that I've had, because it's like I'm a go-getter. I see what I want, I go after it. I'm just very tenacious like that. But you got to be a good musician too. So I mean, it's all of those factors all at once.
Sure. Well, that kind of, I'm a big fan of Evel Knievel. I grew up, watching Evel Knievel on Wide World of Sports, and I had a very fortunate opportunity to meet and sit and talk with Evel Knievel right there in Vegas at Caesar's Palace way back in 1989. And that was kind of the attitude he had. It was just like, you know what? I'm going to jump this 180 feet across this Caesar's Palace fountains over here. I may crash, but you know what? Right. Fuck it. I'm going to go for it because I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah. Do you want to hear my Evel Knievel story?
Tell me of Evel Knievel's story.
So I guess this probably would have been 93, somewhere around there. Excuse me. There was a strip joint that I went to frequented often in Clearwater, Florida, called Diamond Halls. I went in there, and I had this kind of black bolero hat and my black leather jacket on, and I go up to the bar to get a beer, and this old guy's next to me, and he looks at me, he's like, "Hey, kid, Halloween was over 2 weeks ago." And I looked at this guy. I'm like, "Excuse me?" And he's, bleh. I was like, "Good chatting with you, asshole." And so my friend was DJing, popped into the DJ booth, and I'm like, "Who's that old prick right over there?" My friend starts laughing, goes, "That's Evel Knievel." And it was like my whole he was my childhood hero. And just at that moment, I was like, oh, that's my Evel Knievel.
Well, he did live in Florida for many, many years until he passed away. So yeah, that would not be unbelievable that you ran into him in a strip club.
Right. Yes, and was insulted by him too.
Well, I was at the Robbie Knievel jump at Caesar's Palace back in April 14th of 1989, and I was able to sneak into Caesar's Palace and be a part of the after jump party.
Wow. How old were you at that time?
I was, let me think, that was 1989. Let's see, that was, 99, 2009. That was 31 years ago. So, I was 28 years old, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. So you're in your late 20s. Okay.
Yeah. So I got to hang out with Robbie, and I got to sit and talk with Evil.
Nice.
So that was one of the biggest highlights of my life, next to meeting you.
Right. Okay. But he didn't insult you.
No, not at all. He was very, very kind. He gave me his home address and told me, because I told him I wanted to write him a letter, and he said, "Well, if you want to write me a letter, here's my home address. Send it here."
Wow.
So
I caught him on a bad day.
Well, Stacey, tell me a little bit about this band here. I know that you've had a little bit of changes here, but tell me about the what you call yourselves, the Electric Radio Kings. Where did that come from?
When we had finished recording, we did an EP, and we were at first it was just kind of Paul, who lives in New Orleans. I had done some other sessions with him, and the songs were so good. I was like, we need to do a band. So I had this name called Stereo Kings, and everybody was like, oh, yeah, it's pretty good. And that kind of morphed into Electric Radio Kings, and that just stuck. And it wasn't this long, drawn-out process of months of trying to name it. And, I thought it was a really, really cool name, and I like that three-name thing, kind of like STP, so ERK. So that's how the name came about. And we've gone through some member changes, as bands do, trying to find their way. So three of the guys live here in Vegas. David Harris, the other guitar player, and Johnny Rude, who's also a fellow Canuck as well, from Toronto. And then Peter, our new singer, he lives in San Diego, and our new bass player, Carl, is in L.A. But we consider ourselves a Vegas band because we do everything pretty much out of Las Vegas. We rehearse and record here. So.
Well, I know a lot of musicians have kind of relocated to Las Vegas because I guess, obviously it's cheaper to live there than living in L.A., and there's opportunities there out the wazoo to play at various clubs and casinos and, different venues. So when did you relocate to Vegas?
It was summer of 2013. And, my gal and I, who we had been in LA for a long, long time. And, we saw everybody, you got to come to Vegas, And, if you'd have told me 9 years ago that I'd be living in Las Vegas, I'd been like, you're crazy. I'm never leaving LA. But we were starting to get kind of burned out in LA, and I think we flew out for a weekend, and we went and saw this place that we kept looking at, this townhouse complex, and we went and saw it. It was really nice, and we were like, this is the price of this, it's like, what's the catch? So that was appealing, and I think kind of everybody kind of got the secret got out of like, you can live like this for this little. And for me too, it was like I didn't want to live in an apartment for the rest of my life. Here's 7 years now. I do miss California, I really do, but it's an hour flight away, and I'm there. Usually once every two months or so anyway, so I kind of get my fill of it for 3 days, and then I come back.
Sure, absolutely.
My nice 4-bedroom house on a golf course community, so for what you couldn't even get a closet in LA for what I pay for this house. So
yeah, that's true, absolutely. Well, let me ask you something, and you can answer this if you want, or you could be as politically correct as you want, but when you left LA Guns, was this a choice on your own, or was this sort of like a internal struggle with the band, or how did that all come about?
It was a choice I made, and it wasn't an easy choice because, looking back, I never wanted to leave the band, but, we really were not all getting along. And it was one of those things where it's like good marriage turned bad, so to speak. And I just felt at that time I didn't want to be that guy that got fired. But what's like when you're not enjoying being around people that you're with 24/7, and that's not being fixed, and then you have contempt for each other on stage, you gotta make a decision, you know. I mean, it's all good now. We're all friends. And
good. I'm glad to hear that.
I love those guys. I mean, and that's such a big part of my life. I'm so grateful for everything that I did with that. It was, amazing ride. But at that time, you know, we had toured just nonstop for a year and a half. We were around each other all the time. And I was burned out, and I was kind of in a different space mentally and musically. And it was just, you know, butting heads, and it was like, this isn't fun anymore. And that was a tough decision, but I mean, it was I had to make it and come to grips with it and accept it. It wasn't easy. So, but you know, very, very grateful for music I made with the band and just all the tours and everything. It was a fantastic ride.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I always enjoyed you in LA Guns. I mean, you really held your own, and you did justice to the old material as well as the new. And
thank you.
That's when I became a fan, and got to know you a little bit. And I salute you for the time that you put in there, and the new material that you created with them. Now, do you have any thoughts on the two LA Guns that are out there now with Tracy and Phil, and then Steve doing his own thing? Any thoughts on that at all?
I mean, ever since pretty much with exception of the first maybe 2 or 3 years I was in the band, there was always two versions going on. So, when that whole thing started, I was actually and I said yes. And then, when I told the band, when I told my band members, they freaked. And they were like, please, Stacey, don't do this. You have a new record coming out. You have a single going to radio, a new video. And I just felt it wasn't fair to them, and it wasn't fair to Steve. And I didn't want to get involved in a war. So I had to, tell Steve, and unfortunately, I was like, bro, I can't do it. I can't do it. It's going to cause too many problems. So that was kind of how that played out. But I'm, very happy what I'm doing now. And it's like I started this thing, and it's like I didn't want to stop any forward momentum I had. It would be great to play all those songs again. Great catalog of songs that LA Guns has. But yeah, I didn't want to get in the midst of like a war. So
no, I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Well, what's on the horizon for the Electric Radio Kings? What do you got going on in 2020?
A lot of good stuff. We have just been really doing a lot of writing, so we're going to go back into the studio with Mike Gillies, who produced our record Per, and we're going to do probably 3 songs off the bat. So we'll do a new single and a video for that in March, and we'll release that. And we're probably going to be working with this really cool company called Big Noise, and they've been around for about 30 years, kind of East Coast, Providence, Rhode Island area, but they've worked with like Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they were worked heavily with Christina Aguilera, Beach Boys, a lot of big artists. So we're going to start working with them in the spring, and just keep plowing ahead and knocking doors and down doors and just climbing the ladder. So excited. We got a kind of a new vibe thing. It's more musically it's changed a little bit, kind of like a little bit more organic, kind of Rival Sons meets mid-90s STP kind of thing going on now. So really like the new direction and sound and songs that we're doing. So we're full throttle this year.
So you're constantly evolving.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. All right, Stacey, you want to, is there anything else about the band or anything about PER or anything about your upcoming, activities in 2020 you want to let the fans know about that I haven't touched on?
It was really cool. We're playing the Viper Room on Saturday, actually. I have not played that venue since 2002. So I'm super excited about that. But we lot of great things, and the new music is really, really great. So, I'd like to thank the fans who've really stuck by me and supported this new journey. A lot of great things brewing. So, and thank you for having me back on the show. It's always a pleasure.
Well, you're always welcome on anytime, Stacey. All right. Well, if you want to check out the Electric Radio Kings, you can go over there at their website at electricradiokings.com, or you can check them out there on the Facebook over there at facebook.com/.
We've got a new website coming. That old website, the old singer locked up. So
see, once again, all that.
Don't ask me why.
Well, is your Facebook still active? How's that?
Yes, it's still very active.
All right.
And our Instagram page. So that's kind of where to go right now. But we have a new.
All right. So it's facebook.com Electric Radio Kings, as well as Instagram.com Electric Radio Kings. Go check out Stacey David Blades and his band, and listen to his music. Check him out on YouTube. You'll find some of their stuff over there, and support these guys, because Stacey's a good dude, and we support guys who support us. So anyway, Stacey, it's always a pleasure to speak to you.
You too, my friend. Great to see you a couple weeks ago, and I will we'll keep in touch.
Absolutely. So I think we'll close out this interview with another one of your YouTube video hits, I guess you want to call it, is Jack Black Flower. Tell us a little bit about that.
It's actually one of the first songs I wrote for the record, and I don't know where that title came from. It's actually, there's a thing called a Jack Black Dahlia Flower. So it's kind of this, I want to say it's really a drug reference, but it's kind of, the song's about the pitfalls of, whether an actor or musician or screenwriter goes to, LA with stars in their eyes, and all the pitfalls that fall along with kind of becoming famous or trying to be famous and successful. It's kind of that tale, and that's what the song's about.
All right. Well, it's neither about the actor Jack Black, and it has
nothing to do with Jack Black,
and it's neither about the Black Dahlia murder.
No,
it's a song all on its own.
I remember Eddie Trunco. He goes, "What the hell is Jack Black?" I don't know. It just came to me, man.
All right. Well, here it is. It's the Electric Radio Kings with Jack Black Flower, exclusively here on Your Classic Metal Show.